Okay, they were meant to be taken away.
Yes, of course. They were meant to be taken away to fill that quota of women to go on board the ships.
Were there also a different picture of these, colonies painted before the eyes of the,
Oh yes, they were told that if you go to Mauritius, you pick up a stone, you'll get gold from underneath. So
okay,
similarly for everywhere like that.
okay,
It was promises that were held to them,
right,
enticing them.
right,
But the conditions were so bad by the time the famines became man-made more than anything else, where you would find that there were more food in the churches, in their whole thing, and there would be no food in the market, and people would be dying, and these children, their children, would be taken up by the churches and converted eventually to Christianity. These were all the problems that were cropping up in India in that period of time. And the mutiny took place. One of the reasons was conversion to Christianity. One of the reasons. There were several, but this is one of the reasons.
okay.
So it was a very sad story
Okay.
when you look at it from...
And when these people were taken on board, I mean, sometimes cheated and taken on board, and they were not physically able to cope up with the journey, then they fell sick. Are there instances recorded to suggest that they might have been thrown overboard and fed to the sharks? Because these are folklores and, stories which come out of the, from immigrants and the descendants who say that, some people were thrown overboard, and the captains had a mighty laugh about it when they saw the person being eaten up by sharks.
No, this is not true. Because in the initial stages, there were people who jumped into the sea or committed suicide because they did not want to cross the 7 seas. But when the regulated system came, the money paid to the captain was half, and the other half was to be paid at destination if all of them arrived. If they did not arrive, per head it would be deducted.
Okay, so
And
there
what was
an
paid in
incentive.
advance also at Calcutta would also be deducted and adjusted.
Okay.
But there was one particular case where they say the man was so ill and he was still breathing, and that was again to Mauritius, that he threw that person who was not even dead overboard. There was a court case, and he was fined and he was made to lose his job and so on. But there were no such thing as feeding people to the sharks.
Okay.
Things became so good for the emigrants by the 1860s, 70s, that people were, what food they were eating on board the ship, the nitrogen, the carbon contents and everything was discussed. The space they were made to sleep on board the ship, like they would say a Britisher would get 18 square feet of place to sleep, whereas the Indian would be given 12, then 15, and then they were breathing into each other's faces, and the diseases on board, on the decks, and how they died, and the mortality was this. All this was being discussed, and how things were. The height of the ship also was specified. You have to have so much of height. They have to have space. And then the exercises they were given to go up above deck and to get fresh air. And then their entertainment in the evenings, allowed to play music and so on. They were encouraged. It's amazing. It's amazing how they were taken care of, and how their food, their diets, like in times when there would be a storm and they couldn't do any cooking on board the ship. So the churras and biscuits and all would be given to them as ration. No, they were taken care of thoroughly, totally, completely.
And all this was because of the 1842 regulated system coming into place.
Yeah, that's right. And it improved year by year, year by year, year by year.
All right.
Yeah.
It has been an epic journey for you. At the time you wanted to know how your ancestors came, you didn't know that your journey would be so long and it would cover 17 years. So many volumes. And from now on, where does this journey go? And how much more research can we expect, really? Because I think you've covered all the documents and all the archives by now.
No, I haven't. I have covered up to, the proceedings I've covered up to 1876, which is on the publication, but I have the research up to 1932, and that's going to be probably another 8 to 10 volumes, I'm not very sure. But in between, I still go back to check if I have missed out on something or the other. And I do find I have missed out on something or the other.
That's interesting.
Yes, so then I start copying all
Okay.
over again and all that. So I don't know when it's going to end, but
Okay.
I suppose me at my age, till I can do it, I will do it.
Right.
And because nobody has given a thought of preserving these records the way they are in the archives, I don't think they are going to last
They're
long.
not in good shape?
No, not at all. And they are not going to last long either. And they have, the archives are working very hard everywhere on these, on their records, in lamination, preservation, and so on. Now they've started digitizing the records also. But I don't think that emigration, colonial emigration, has been their priority.
Okay.
And I don't see it coming in the long run. And by that time, I don't think there will be anything left of those records. Because when I'm turning one page, the piece remains in my hand. However careful I am to turn it,
It's brittle. It breaks.
so brittle. Recently, about 2 months ago, I just took 4 pages together so that it doesn't break, and I turned the 4 pages together, and all the 4 pages this long, like this, it came out. In my hand, it stayed in my hand, and the 4 pages fell down, almost into pieces. And I called the librarian. I said, just look at this. I'm holding it so carefully, and just look at this. I won't be able to work on that.
Right. So what is the remedy?
So I said, can I bring sellotape and fix it? They said, no, we are going to fix it by lamination. Then I said, I can't work on this register till you laminate it because I don't want to damage it further.
What about microfilming?
Oh, out of the question. Out of the question.
Okay.
Digitizing has started now, so especially they have been buying some.
So even if microfilming does not take place, what you're confident about is that eventually we will see the result of your efforts with the Bhawanipur depot and the museum will come into place.
I hope so. I hope so.
Something which has been very fascinating for all of us, but not a great deal is known. It is about the two colonial powers, France and England. Who among these two were the more crueler, if I may put it, more cruel than the other in terms of their recruitment policies, in terms of the treatment that they meted out to the indentured workers, and in terms of the facilities that they provided to these indentured workers?
The French were obviously the people who really were cruel. And it has been known that because of the French, immigration of indentured labor to Mauritius was stopped for a short period because the French treated their Indian laborers who went on a contract basis just like they treated their slaves from Africa. So there was no difference at all for the French until the British took the reins in their hands and decided that they would regulate immigration and that everything will be under their control. But unfortunately, the unregulated period of 1834 to 1839 caused a lot of miseries to the Indian